These institutions are notorious for their extreme conditions, inhumane treatment of inmates, and the sheer brutality that makes them prisons worse than death. Each facility, with its own unique history and set of horrors, offers a stark reminder of the capacity for human cruelty. In this deep dive, we will uncover the harrowing realities faced by inmates, where survival itself becomes a daily struggle against unimaginable odds. S21, also known as Tuol Sleng, was a notorious security prison operated by the Khmer Rouge regime in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Located in a former high school, the prison became one of the most infamous sites of torture, interrogation, and execution during the Cambodian genocide from 1975 to 1979. Under the leadership of Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge sought to create an agrarian socialist society, which led to the death of approximately 1.7 million people through starvation, forced labor, and execution. The Khmer Rouge, officially known as the Communist Party of Kampuchea, took control of Cambodia on April 17, 1975. Their radical policies aimed at transforming the country into a classless agrarian utopia led to the evacuation of cities, forced labor camps, and widespread purges. S21 was established in May 1976 as a secret prison to detain, interrogate, and execute those perceived as enemies of the regime. The chief of S21, known as Kang Kek Yew, Comrade Duch, oversaw the operations of the prison. He was responsible for the torture and interrogation of prisoners, meticulously documenting confessions and ordering executions. The staff consisted of young, indoctrinated Khmer Rouge cadres who were trained to carry out brutal interrogations and maintain strict control over the prisoners. Prisoners at S21 were subjected to horrific torture methods to extract confessions. These included beatings, electric shocks, waterboarding, and mutilation. The goal was to force prisoners to confess to being spies, traitors, or saboteurs, often implicating others in their crimes. Forced confessions were meticulously recorded and often included fabricated stories of collaboration with foreign powers or internal subversion. These confessions were used as evidence to justify executions. Prisoners were kept in tiny cells, either individually or in large communal rooms where they were shackled to the floor. The conditions were deplorable, with inadequate food, water, and sanitation. Inmates were often forced to defecate and urinate in their cells, leading to extremely unsanitary conditions. Prisoners endured a daily routine of torture, interrogation, and psychological abuse. They were forbidden to speak to one another and were often left in isolation for long periods. Once a prisoner had confessed, and their usefulness was deemed over, they were transported to the Chong Ek killing fields, located about 15 kilometers from Phnom Penh. Here, they were executed and buried in mass graves. The executions were carried out at night to avoid attracting attention, and the bodies were often buried in shallow graves. It is estimated that around 20,000 people were imprisoned at S21, with only a handful of known survivors. The majority were executed, and their bodies disposed of at Choyung Ek. S21 was discovered in January 1979, following the Vietnamese invasion of Cambodia, which toppled the Khmer Rouge regime. The Vietnamese troops found the prison abandoned, with evidence of the atrocities committed, including photographs, documents, and the remains of victims. Tuol Sleng was converted into the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum in 1980. The museum serves as a memorial to the victims and a place of education about the horrors of the Khmer Rouge regime. The Khmer Rouge meticulously documented prisoners with photographs taken upon their arrival. These haunting images are now displayed in the museum, providing a stark reminder of the victims' humanity. Thousands of pages of confessions and interrogation records were found, detailing the torture methods and false confessions extracted from the prisoners. Established in 2006, the ECC is a hybrid court tasked with prosecuting senior leaders of the Khmer Rouge and those most responsible for the atrocities. In 2010, Kang Kek Yew, Comrade Duch, was convicted of crimes against humanity and war crimes, and sentenced to life imprisonment. S21 stands as a grim testament to the brutality and inhumanity of the Khmer Rouge regime. The prison's horrific conditions, systematic torture, and mass executions highlight the extent of the atrocities committed. The transformation of Tuol Sleng into a museum ensures that the memory of the victims is preserved. serving as a powerful reminder of the need for vigilance against tyranny and the importance of justice and accountability.
North Korea, a nation shrouded in secrecy and governed by an iron-fisted regime, harbors one of the most chilling and least visible human rights crises of the modern world: the existence of a vast network of political prison camps. These camps, known as kwanliso, represent a grim reality where the North Korean government detains, tortures, and eradicates those it perceives as threats to its authoritarian rule. The mere existence of these camps, steeped in infamy and horror, speaks volumes about the regime's brutal suppression of any form of dissent. The harrowing world of kwanliso. Within North Korea's borders lie several types of detention facilities, including forced labor camps and camps specifically for political prisoners. Notably, the kwanliso are the most notorious among these, designed for those accused of political crimes and their families. Estimates suggest that these camps imprison between 80,000 to 135,000 people, encompassing a range of facilities from penal labor camps to re-education centers. Life in the kwanliso is marked by unimaginable cruelty and relentless hardship. Prisoners are subjected to inhumane conditions, akin to slavery, where basic human rights are non-existent. They endure extreme physical abuse, calculated starvation, and are frequently subjected to torture and other degrading treatment. Amnesty International reports that all detainees in certain camps, such as Yodok, have witnessed public executions, highlighting the pervasive climate of fear and oppression. The camps operate under a brutal regime of forced labor, with inmates working long hours in dangerous and often pointless tasks. Failing to meet work quotas can result in reduced meals, solitary confinement, or worse. The labor is grueling, with defectors reporting 12-hour workdays being a norm, and any form of dissent or failure often leads to violent repercussions. Many prisoners work in hazardous conditions without proper safety equipment or training. This includes mining, logging, construction, and agricultural labor. Accidents and injuries are common, but medical care is usually inadequate or entirely absent. Work assignments are often arbitrary and can be used as a form of punishment. Prisoners who are seen as disobedient or who fail to meet quotas are given more strenuous or dangerous tasks. Kim Hae-suk, who spent 28 years in Camp 18, described the relentless nature of forced labor in the camp's coal mines. She spoke of the constant hunger and fatigue that plagued her as she worked, with her only wish being to eat a single bowl of white rice. Survivors from Camp 15 at Yodok have recounted similar experiences, where failure to meet work goals resulted in collective punishment. The work was physically exhausting, leaving prisoners with little energy or will to resist the oppressive camp regime. The combination of long hours, hard labor, inadequate nutrition, and lack of medical care takes a severe toll on the physical and mental health of prisoners. Many suffer from chronic injuries, fatigue, and psychological trauma. There are numerous reports of deaths resulting directly from overwork. In some cases, prisoners are forced to continue working even when severely ill or injured, leading to preventable fatalities. Even children and the elderly are not spared from forced labor. Children as young as 12 are put to work, and there is little concession made for the aged or infirm. The forced labor camps serve not only as a tool of repression, but also as a source of economic gain for the regime. Products ranging from agricultural goods to coal and other minerals are produced through the forced labor of prisoners. The secretive nature of the regime and the inaccessibility of the camps mean that there is little international oversight or intervention in these practices. The conditions regarding health, hygiene, and nutrition within these camps are dire. Starvation, disease, and lack of medical care are rampant, leading to a high rate of deaths in custody. In some camps, deaths from starvation and neglect are as common as those from executions. The living conditions in North Korea's political prison camps are characterized by extreme deprivation and inhumanity, reflecting the regime's utter disregard for the basic rights and dignity of the incarcerated. These conditions, as described in various reports and survivor testimonies, paint a grim picture of daily life in the camps. Inmates are typically housed in overcrowded barracks or cells, often lacking adequate space for the number of people confined within them. These structures are usually rudimentary, providing minimal shelter from the harsh weather conditions prevalent in North Korea. The barracks are devoid of basic amenities. Bedding, if provided at all, is often nothing more than a thin mat or wooden plank. Heating is inadequate or non-existent, exposing inmates to severe cold during winters. The camps have extremely poor sanitation facilities. Access to clean water is limited, and proper toilets are often absent, leading to unsanitary conditions that are conducive to the spread of diseases. Prisoners rarely have the opportunity to bathe or wash their clothing. This lack of personal hygiene, combined with the overcrowding, exacerbates health risks and contributes to the degradation of human dignity. Medical care in the camps is grossly inadequate. Injuries from forced labor, diseases, and illnesses often go untreated. This neglect leads to preventable deaths and exacerbates the suffering of those with chronic health conditions. Chronic malnutrition leads to a host of health problems, including weakened immune systems, making inmates more susceptible to illnesses and infections. The oppressive environment, characterized by constant surveillance, abuse, and the threat of punishment, creates an atmosphere of fear and psychological stress. This environment takes a significant toll on the mental health of the prisoners. Inmates are frequently forced to witness the abuse and execution of fellow prisoners, including family members. This exposure to violence and trauma has lasting psychological effects. Kim Young-soon, a former prisoner in Yodok camp, described a daily routine of forced labor from dawn to dusk, living in cramped quarters with limited food and no opportunity for personal hygiene. The constant physical and psychological strain was compounded by witnessing the suffering and death of fellow inmates. Kim Hye-suk recounted the inhumane living conditions where human lives were valued less than those of animals. The lack of food, proper shelter, and medical care, coupled with hard labor in the coal mines, painted a picture of relentless suffering. Torture is routine, with methods designed to inflict maximum suffering. A notable form of torture is the cube torture cell, where it's impossible for the inmate to either stand or lie down. Executions are not only frequent, but are carried out publicly as a means of instilling fear among the prisoners. The methods of torture and the nature of public executions in North Korea's political prison camps are particularly brutal and serve as tools of control and intimidation. Here are some additional details based on survivor accounts and reports. The cube torture cell. A notorious method involves confining prisoners in a small cube-shaped cell where it is impossible to stand upright or lie down fully. This method causes extreme physical and mental suffering. There have been reports of inmates, including children, being confined in these cells for extended periods, sometimes up to 8 months. Forced physical stress. Prisoners are often subjected to physically excruciating positions for extended periods. This could include being hung by the wrists, forced to hold stress positions for hours, or kneeling on sharp objects. Beatings and physical abuse. Regular beatings and physical abuse are commonplace. This abuse can be random or as punishment for failing to meet work quotas, showing insufficient zeal in ideological training, or for minor infractions. Withholding food and water. As a form of torture, food and water are often withheld from prisoners, exacerbating the already severe problem of malnutrition and dehydration in the camps. Psychological torture. Psychological torture includes forcing prisoners to witness the execution or abuse of other inmates, including family members, and threatening them with similar fates. Public executions are carried out for what might be considered minor or arbitrary infractions by other standards, such as attempted escape, contact with the outside world, or criticism of the regime. Other prisoners, including children, are often forced to witness these executions, which serves as a grim reminder of the consequences of disobedience and is used to instill fear among the inmate population. The methods of execution vary, but reports indicate that firing squads and hanging are commonly used. The bodies of those executed are sometimes displayed or disposed of in an inhumane manner, further traumatizing the witnesses. These executions occur without any semblance of due process. Often, the accused have no opportunity to defend themselves in a fair trial, and the decision for execution can be arbitrary and swift. The use of torture and public executions in North Korea's political prison camps is a stark violation of human rights. These practices are designed not only to punish individuals, but also to instill a deep sense of fear and control over the entire camp population. The accounts of these atrocities underscore the brutal reality faced by prisoners in these camps and the urgent need for international scrutiny and action. The North Korean regime often practices collective punishment, incarcerating entire families for the perceived offenses of one member. This often leads to multi-generational imprisonment, with children born in and growing up within the confines of these camps, knowing nothing of the outside world. This system of collective punishment underscores the regime's ruthless approach to dissent and control. When an individual is accused of a political crime, it's not uncommon for their entire family, parents, children, siblings, to be sent to the prison camps as well. This is based on the regime's policy of guilt by association, aimed at eliminating any potential opposition from the relatives of those deemed disloyal. In some extreme cases, the policy extends to 3 generations of a family, meaning that even grandchildren can be born and spend their entire lives in the camps without any chance of release. Many of these families face indefinite detention without trial or any form of legal process. The conditions of their incarceration are often harsher than those of regular prisoners. Shin Dong-hyuk, born in a political prison camp as a result of his parents' imprisonment, is a rare case of someone who was born in a camp and managed to escape. His testimony sheds light on the brutal realities of life in the camps, including forced labor, public executions, and torture, experienced not only by the accused but also by their innocent family members. The psychological impact of collective punishment is profound, particularly on children born in the camps who grow up witnessing and experiencing constant abuse and deprivation. The policy disrupts and destroys family units, leaving long-lasting scars on those who survive and manage to leave the camps. The threat of collective punishment serves as a powerful tool for the regime to instill fear and maintain control over the population, deterring any potential dissent. Collective punishment is a calculated strategy employed by the regime to eliminate not just political dissenters, but also their potential lineages, thereby attempting to root out any future opposition. The regime justifies this practice under its stringent ideology, which holds entire families responsible for the actions of one member, reflecting a perverse interpretation of loyalty and collective responsibility. Collective punishment in North Korea's political prison camps is a stark violation of basic human rights and international law. It highlights the extreme lengths to which the regime will go to suppress dissent and maintain its power. The testimonies of survivors and their accounts of the suffering endured by entire families underscore the urgent need for international attention and action to address these human rights atrocities. The North Korean government continues to deny the existence of these camps, keeping them hidden from the international community. This lack of transparency is compounded by the regime's refusal to allow independent monitoring, denying access to UN special rapporteurs and human rights organizations. Consequently, much of what is known about these camps comes from the harrowing accounts of the few who have managed to escape. The political prison camps of North Korea, with their unspeakable conditions and atrocities, stand as a stark reminder of the regime's brutal suppression of human rights. The stories of survivors and defectors, though limited, offer a rare glimpse into a world of systematic oppression and cruelty. These accounts not only expose the horrors endured by thousands, but also serve as a call to action for the international community to address this ongoing human rights catastrophe.